This is a sample of $2,300 tequila, recently released by The Last Drop, a Sazerac-owned brand whose sole mission is basically to curate and release some of the most expensive spirits on the market. Tequila pretty much never gets this expensive, for reasons we'll dive into later in the video, and suffice it to say that this is by far the priciest extra añejo I've ever gotten my hands on. The Last Drop was kind enough to send me a sample of this latest release, alongside 3 very tiny samples of previous releases spanning bourbon, Irish whiskey, and single malt scotch that each got into the many $1,000 territory in their own right. Today, we're gonna see if a $2,300 tequila can possibly live up to the steep price of entry while comparing it to some other stuff in the Last Drop's portfolio. The first thing to keep in mind is that The Last Drop does not distill their own spirits, but rather sources them from acclaimed distilleries across the world. In the case of their first ever tequila release, it was distilled by Carmen Villarreal of the Casa San Matías distillery in Jalisco, Mexico. If you know anything about the Casa San Matías distillery, I think it's safe to say that the collaboration makes sense, but it's still pretty surprising considering what the facility has produced in the past. This is a distillery that, for the most part, is best known for pretty budget-friendly stuff. They do a brand called Pueblo Viejo, which is a really tasty additive-free back bar essential you can get for as little as $20 for the Blanco. They also do Corazon, which does these really cool collaborations with stuff like Blanton's and Pappy Van Winkle, but they're usually not that expensive either, costing around $60 and way up for some of the older stuff, but I think that's the exception, not the rule. All said and done, this is a great tequila distillery, but far from the Macallan of tequila distilleries, if that comparison makes any sense. As far as I know, they've never helmed anything that goes anywhere upwards of $2,000, so this is a pretty interesting change of pace. The liquid in here comprises a blend of 3 batches. 2 aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon barrels and 1 aged for 7 years in a port pipe. It's bottled at 46.3% ABV and was limited to a total release of just 435 bottles. And it probably goes without saying, but the actual bottles are a lot bigger than this. If you're paying $2,300, you are not gonna get a 50 milliliter shooter like I am. Let's give it a try. Right off the bat, it smells fantastic. I get a lot of really custardy autumn type vibes on here, almost like a vanilla ice cream, plum, apple pie, some cloves. It's very baking spice forward, a lot of dessert notes, and I think those port casks are definitely noticeable on the aroma as well. I get a bit of a tannic red wine vibe, maybe some stewed red grapes if I was reaching a little bit. Tons of creme brulee and roasted agave on the palate, surprisingly so for something that's been aged this long. Oftentimes, I find that if a tequila is aged for over, say, 5 or 6 years, you usually lose out on a lot of that signature agave flavor, but it feels pretty remarkably balanced here. If I was tasting this blind, I honestly don't know if I would have guessed it was an extra añejo. Probably a slimmer age statement like an añejo or a reposado. And I mean that in a good way. The oak is far from overwhelming, but it does contribute a lot of those signature bourbon notes. Your cinnamon, your butterscotch, and that classic hit of Buffalo Trace cherry that you often get from their expressions. It's really tasty stuff. But would I, a regular person, pay $2,300 for this? Absolutely not, and that probably goes without saying. It does make for an interesting comparison though. More often than not, when you're shelling out a lot of money for tequila, chances are it's more for the bottle than it is for the actual juice. Stuff like Don Julio 1942 and Clase Azul in particular, which does some really crazy limited edition ceramic decanters that can cost as much as $20,000 on the resale market. Because of that, I think there's a valid argument to be made that this is the most expensive tequila ever released, once you discount the bottles and all the other gimmicky stuff. Fun fact, the actual #1 Guinness World Record holding most expensive tequila ever sold is this platinum and Swarovski diamond coated monstrosity that sold for $3.5 million. I've never tried that tequila for myself and I definitely never will, but I think it's safe to say that this is probably a better tequila in terms of quality versus flashy, showy, gimmicky type stuff. Let's compare this to some other stuff from The Last Drop. First up, we've got The Last Drop 40-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. Average resale price is around $5,000 for this one, and I've seen it go as high as $15,000 on some of the more ludicrous resellers. This is a 10 milliliter vial. I feel like I'm holding some sort of nuclear substance. I can be a little clumsy sometime, and this is pretty much the last thing I'd want to drop on the ground and have shatter. Bon appetit. Really tasty stuff. I don't know which distillery or distilleries they sourced this from, but it definitely has that sherry seasoned cask vibe that you get from a lot of the more popular best-selling Scotch brands in 2025. There's really only a wisp of smoke in here, so if I had to guess, probably unpeated. So far as flavors, I get a lot of dried fruit notes, apricots, raisins, prunes, and peaches, plus a great balance of nutmeg and cinnamon, which really hit on the finish in particular. Next up, we've got a 32-year-old single malt Irish whiskey, which I'm currently seeing online between $2,000 and $9,000. This one's bottled at 46.4% ABV, but it definitely feels like it has an extra lick of alcohol in there for sure. I get a lot of red flavors on this, specifically apple and a kind of gluey sugar note I'd liken to Twizzlers. I get a lot of dark chocolate and a little bit of marzipan nuttiness as well, but overall, I think this might be one of the less complex bottlings I've had from the last drop so far. Really tasty stuff, but nothing that's necessarily blowing me away. Definitely one that I will revisit down the road to see where my preferences lie. Last but not least, we've got a blended Kentucky straight whiskey, bottled at 60.7% ABV. Like the other ones, I'm seeing this from everywhere between $2,000 to $10,000 online. That's really, really good. Tons of fall fruit, leather, tobacco, and a bit of that in-your-face corn sweetness you get from a higher proofed bourbon. It tastes like a thoroughly upgraded twist on something like Blanton's or Pappy Van Winkle. And though I don't think I would pay $10,000 for it, it comes pretty damn close to justifying it. If I had to give a ranking of these four delicious but very expensive spirits, I would probably put the 32-year-old single malt Irish whiskey in 4th place, the 40-year-old blended Scotch whiskey in 3rd place, the new Extra Añejo tequila in 2nd place, and the blended Kentucky straight whiskey in 1st place. If you can manage to get your hands on them, I would say the top 2 spots are a must try for anyone who is into aged tequila or bourbon. I am very grateful to have gone to try this stuff because I probably never will again. So cheers to that. As usual, my name is Pedro Wolf and this is the Tequila Pour. Like and subscribe for more Mexican agave spirits content and everything else that the crazy world of liquor has to offer.